Hi everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and I am super excited to share today's tutorial with you. First of all, it uses a 60-degree ruler. Now 60-degree rulers aren't new to the quilt world. We just make our templates to fit the pre-cuts, so that's why we did one, but it's going to be able to help you make this amazing quilt. Plus, we've got a whole lot more in store for this ruler. So let's talk about the quilt behind me. Isn't this just gorgeous? Now, the whole world waits for Tula Pink's fabric, and that's what this is. This is her Tula, her line work fabric, and we combined it with her solid to make these, and wait till you see how easy this is, because I know it looks like you worked really hard, but it's super, super easy. So to make this quilt, you're going to need one roll of 2.5-inch strips, and again, we have used line work by Tula Pink for Free Spirit, and you're going to need one roll of solids. Now, keep in mind that this quilt is gorgeous, and you can use any fabric with it, so don't be afraid to try it out on some other ones. But when I saw these two lines, I just had to try them together. You're also going to need a little bit of background fabric. That's this black right here, and you're going to need 1 1/4 yards for that. Now for this outer border out here, this is a nice big 6-inch border, and we used 1.5 yards for that border. And then the back, look at this backing. It's all the drawings put together, and it's a great, just a great fabric, and it's 108. So it's a nice backing fabric for all kinds of things, and you're gonna need 2 3/4 yards for your back. So let me show you how to make this, because it's just really fun and way easier than it looks. All right, so let's get to making this quilt. The first thing we're gonna do is we are going to choose a strip. And as you see these unroll, are these not fun and gorgeous? All right, I'm going to choose this strip right here, just right out of the middle. And I'm going to choose a color to go along with that. And I think that I will choose, let's go with one of these beautiful blues, teals, aquas. Let's go. How about this one? All right, so what you're going to do, now that I've made a real mess of these, what we're going to do is we're going to take these two right here, and we're going to sew them right together. And sew wrong sides together, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch right down the side. And so I'm just going to lay these right on top of each other, and we are just going to go to the sewing machine and sew 1/4 inch all the way down. All right, my chair out here. All right, so line up along the edge of your 1/4 inch line. Grab a 1/4 inch foot, use the diagonal seam tape, whatever you want, and we're just going to sew right along here. And if you keep it lined up, you can sew for quite a while. Now mine is scooting just a little bit, so we'll readjust. And the line I'm focusing on is just that 1/4 inch line right there. And it is pretty important that your 1/4 inch line is pretty straight on this when you're sewing it. If you find yourself weaving, it's not going to be good. All right, so we sew those down. Now we're going to press them to the dark side, which is going to be our line work color. So I'm just going to lay this up like this, grab my iron, and I'm just going to press this from the top to make sure there's no folds. You don't want any folds in this. And you can feel to make sure that your our blue piece is folding up toward our darker piece. Oh my gosh, this fabric is so fun. All right, so then you have a long piece like that, and let me show you, my ironed line is all going to the dark side. And then we're gonna put it up here, and we are gonna grab our 60-degree ruler, and we are going to use this from the 4.5 side. This has 1/4 inch measurements on it as well, but it goes from 1 to 8, and it has the, we're going to go at the 4.5 line. So I'm going to lay this right along the edge, and let me move these out of the way. I'm going to go right along this edge right here, and I am lining my 4.5 up on the bottom edge of my strip. Now, the point of your ruler should be very close to the top. And that's, if you get your 1/4 inch right on, it should be very close to the top. So I'm going to head and cut this. I'm going to go ahead and cut this from both sides. And I'm just going to scoot this out of the way like this. And then I'm going to turn my ruler. So I'm still on the 4.5, always lining up from the bottom of the strip. and I'm going to cut this side to side like this. Now you need 6 of each of these. See how different these are? On this one, the color's on the bottom. This one, the color's on the top. And you're going to need 6 of each. So we're just going to keep cutting here. Okay, so now I have 6 of each, and we have this little bit at the beginning of waist, and this part right here is where we're going to get our border out here from, all these little pieces right here. And so I try to use every bit, you know I do, but let me show you how to put these together. So what we're going to do with these is we're going to keep these in 2 separate piles, and we're going to make half hexies with these. So we're going to put 3 of these together like this, and this makes one side, like that. And then we'll sew these 3 together up here, and it will make the other side of the hexagon. So it goes together very easily. When you go to lay these together, they match up exactly. You don't have to lay 1/4 inch off each side. You're just going to line them up exactly. And so we're going to sew some of these together, show you how easy that happens. And we're just going to sew 1/4 inch. So let's line these up. And what I do is I'll sew 1/2 first, and then I'll show you how I do it a little bit quicker, so just to save a little bit of time. So first, we're going to sew these 2, and then we're going to sew the other piece on here to make 3. And you'll see if you press this right, then this little point should stick up, and you're still going to use that. You're still going to line it up exactly and line it up right on there. If you match up exactly, your lines where the color comes together should be just perfect. All right, so this is our half right here, and I'm going to sew another one together so you can see that even better. So we're going to sew these 2 right here, and we're going to line them up exactly. And we're just going to sew 1/4 inch right down the side. You do want to look to make sure that your colors are lining up, but they should match really close. All right, so now on this part right here, I want to show this where we can get a really good shot of it. When you go ahead and I'm like finger pressing this back, you can see this little point right here is still sticking up off the top. And so you're still going to use that to measure. You're going to line it up exactly so it matches up with this point and this point. No hangover, it's just lining up exactly. And then we're going to sew down that side. Now just like that, I have 2 of these sides done like this. But let me show you when you get going, this is a little trick to do it a little bit quicker. So now we're sewing the opposite where our color will be outside and our line work will be in the middle. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take 2 of these like this. So now I'm just going to sew 1/4 inch right down the side of these, and we're going to do these 2 like this. And then I'm going to push 2 more in and just do the same thing. We're lining them up exactly and sewing them on. And this is just a little bit of chain piecing. Then we're going to take these out, and we are going to do the same thing, chain piece them right through, but just add that other piece. So again, make sure that your little point is sticking up, and you can use that as a guide to line up exactly. And we're going to chain piece them through. And I'm going to look to make sure that my color matches up. There was a tiny bit of variance on that seam, so I just wanted to check to make sure that it really lined up. They're so easy to line up, though. I was actually so tickled as to how easy this went together and how quickly it went together. All right, so now we're just putting the other one through. And just with a little bit of chain piecing, we've got both of these sides done. Now let's press these open, and I'll show you how we lay it out. So I'm just going to press these. I'm not too worried about the direction the seams are going because they're, they all got to go somewhere, and they're laying down pretty nice. So there's that one. And you don't want to sew the whole hexagon together yet. So we're just going to lay them out like this, and I'll show you how they go together. All right, let me make sure these are... The one thing I don't like in my seams is I don't like folds, you know, not too many folds. Like, see how this one is kind of folded over right here? I don't like that. So I'll go back and press that and make it nice and flat. All right. So now let's look at our quilt behind us, because the easy way to put this quilt together is to put it together in rows. This actually goes together in little rows like this. And the way we're going to lay it out is, obviously, I have a couple sewn here, but you know, it's going to look real matchy because I just have 2 different sets from 2 different strips. But you'll have all your different strip sets, so it's going to look really scrappy and fun. All right, so we're going to take this one, and then this one we're going to turn and put here. And then this one we're going to turn and put here. And then this one we're going to turn. We're going to take one of these. Now, you'll notice on this right here that I have used a solid on the outside and a line work on the outside, a line work on the outside and a solid on the outside. That's because when you lay out this quilt, and you have to lay it out on the floor, unless you're like amazing at putting these things together. I had to lay mine out on the floor to see where everything went, because the second row has to line up to make the rest of the hexagon, which means this one's going to have to go up here, and this one's going to have to go down here, and this one's going to have to go up here, and then you're going to start a whole nother one down here. But we're going to sew these together in rows just like this. Now, when you're ready to sew them together, again, they're going to line up really, really perfectly, especially if your little points are ironed to give you that, you know, that little place, and they're just going to go together just like the hexagons went together. So then you can see how these rows go together. You know, they just go together in straight rows, but you have to match them so that this guy, that every pot has its lid. It's got to have the whole block to make it look right. Then we need to talk about this outside edge out here. Now, we did a black framing border. This top one is a 2.5, but along these sides we had this angle. And so what we did was we took a black strip that is 4 1/4, and because when you get your hexagons sewn together, you have that seam in there, it's going to measure out to 4 1/4 or close. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this right here, and I'm going to trim off these edges right here, the selvage edge. And then I'm going to cut a 7.5-inch rectangle. And the reason we're doing that is because it just wastes less fabric. So we're going to do that. We have this right here. I have them folded in half, so I have 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to this edge. And because we cut it at 4 1/4, you have to line it up on the 4 1/4 line. Now, there are these little tiny lines here that are in between our 4-inch line and our 4.5-inch line, and that's the 4 1/4. Your point should be right at the top. And this edge over here should be right at the edge of your block. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to cut this one side, and then these should be the same size. And they are. They just lay perfectly. And because we're using black, you can use either side, so it doesn't matter which way you do it. But when you're ready to do the end of your row on this, you're going to have one block that ends this way. And then, let me find the top of this guy. And then the next one right here, when you sew these rows together, this one will go the opposite direction. So it's going to go like this. And you will sew a black square to the end of all your rows before you sew your rows together, so that it gives you this awesome, you know, border that goes in, out, in, out, in, out, which I love that look. Now, let me talk about this right here. First of all, when you get done cutting your strips, you have a piece about this big left over. And I actually did some playing with this. So the first thing I did was I took the straight end right here, made sure my selvages were cut off, and I cut a couple of 2.5-inch strips like this. And I did have some leftover of this, but I cut a couple. And I still had this piece, which was big enough to take my 60 degree and cut another one out of this. So I cut another one out of this like this, just because I could. And you can actually probably get, no, you can't quite get a 2.5 out of that one. but I had all these pieces now that were random and left over. And so I put together these fun, I mean, they just kind of look, they're so happy. Look at these little blocks I did off the extra. And so don't be afraid to scrap them up if you want to, you know, change them up. I kept mine together for the look of the quilt, but I'll tell you, I have some fun things in mind. And this was only 6 pieces off of all my strip sets. So, you know, there's a lot of these to be had out there. I mean, I have quite a stack of these left over that I can still get, you know, one of those orphan wedges, if you will. And so it's just something else fun to play with. Maybe you can make a little pillow, a little table run or something like that with your leftovers. I always love to show you what to do with the leftovers. But on these right here, what I did was I cut all of these and then I just started sewing them together in 2s, and I made long strips. So let's take a look at the quilt one more time. We're sewing these together in rows. You have to lay them out to make sure that you have tops and bottoms. Actually, our layout was kind of interesting because we actually kind of concentrated on making some flowers. So you can see right here, see we have all the solids around this one print in the middle. And you can see that in several other places, you know, that we've done some half ones up here and that sort of thing. And that's kind of how we did our layout. This first border, framing border out here, I love how it goes in and out. We added our second 2.5-inch border just by sewing those pieces together. I made a really long chain, put them on the sides, put them on the top and the bottoms, and then added another 2.5-inch border to frame again and our big 6-inch border. Our quilting pattern on here is called sticky buns, and any time that I use anything that is angular, I like to have a pattern that has a bit of a curve to it, and this makes a great size quilt. So it's 77 by 87, and so it's a great size, and you get a new tool and a bunch of new ideas, and we hope you enjoyed this tutorial on seeing spots from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you are not already part of the Missouri Star Quilt family, you can hit the subscribe button below so you won't miss a thing. And if you click that bell, it'll notify you every time a new tutorial comes out. See you next Friday.